I was stuck in that chassis, and then it goes to a point where you accept you're gonna die. Right? It's quite a weird feeling.
We think about nutrition, we think about performance, we think about it with the NFL, we think about it with athletes, but we don't really think about it with motorsports, right? You think, okay, they're sitting down, there's not much nutrition that has to go into that, but it's so much endurance, so much cognitive nutrition, cognitive performance, which is just a huge part of it. And you look at me and you say, oh, Thomas, you're just the nutrition guy on the internet. My background, my entire livelihood growing up was around a lot of my dad's racing.
I knew your dad. Our dads raced together.
No kidding.
Andy Greer.
Of course I know your dad.
Yeah. Bob Greer, yeah.
Dude, small world. Yeah, man. I grew up near Sonoma, so I spent most of my time at Sonoma Raceway, at the time Sears Point, also Laguna Seca. I was on a racetrack before I had my driver's license, so I appreciate what goes into it. But more so, I think there needs to be a broader understanding that these are not just drivers, they're athletes. And especially when you start getting into Indy and Formula One, it's not just muscular endurance, it's mental stamina. And you're fooling yourself if you don't think that nutrition plays a significant role in that. Yeah. So this weekend, we're following around some of the drivers. We're spending some time with Romain Grosjean, learning what he eats, what he does in terms of staying in shape, what he does to build muscle, cardiovascular fitness. And we're just gonna have an awesome weekend. Plus, I get to take a couple laps around the track at an IndyCar myself.
Belt. Oh man, there it is. Relax.
Right, I am here with the one, the only Romain Grosjean.
Hi.
Yes, yeah, might recognize him from F1 previously, but now he's rocking the Indy circuit. So I wanted to bring him on the channel because he is a guy that really does put emphasis on nutrition, puts emphasis on his workouts, puts emphasis on everything health. In fact, he's wearing an Oura ring too, which is pretty awesome. So man, thanks for coming on. I mean, walk me through sort of your typical training so that people have an understanding of how physically demanding this sport is.
I think, you know, the thing with racing is that we're so limited in how much testing we can do, right? In Formula One, it varies from 3 to 5 days per year. In IndyCar, it's about 5 days a year. So that means for 5 days you're in the car practicing, and then you've got the races. But in between, there's nothing. So how can you back home try to find a fitness regime that would work to do what your job is? It's like, you know, you would tell a tennis player you're not allowed to play tennis unless you're in a tournament.
Yep.
It's the same thing. So how do you practice, you know, how do you train those muscles that are very specific? So that's what I've been doing for I mean, I started training properly in 2006. So, you know, 16 years ago. oh dear.
Yeah.
And then cardiovascular is big, you know, heart rate goes high in the car, it's hard to humid, it takes a lot of the brain concentration, making sure you get the right braking point and so on and so on. So that's a big part. And then in IndyCar compared to Formula One, I had to work a lot the upper body strengths because we don't have a power steering wheel, and the wheel is very, but like you can't imagine how heavy it is to turn that wheel. And you know, I've got like a 1966 Mustang back home, doesn't have a power steering wheel, and I have to park it. It's almost easier than that thing. So you know, it is big thing. So yeah, that's how I do.
Yeah. And then, so I mean, I know, you know, from your Instagram and from, you know, following you for a while, you're a big cyclist as well, right? So that's your method of operation for cardiovascular fitness mainly? Or?
Yes, cycling. Yeah. The reason being, I did a long distance triathlon back in 2018. I love triathlon, but when you race, you sit in a kind of awkward position and the car bounces on the ground all the time. So my back is not in the best shape it could get. So running hurts a lot. Yeah. So I kind of stopped running and went into cycling. So I do about, I don't know, 3,000 miles a year. I'm gonna do more in Florida because it's flatter.
I know.
You get more distance for the same time. So I love cycling, and you know, you can cycle pretty much every day, and apart from the fatigue, and that's why I've got the Oura ring, trying to track the fatigue level. The rest, you know, the body, the muscles, yes, some days the legs are better than others, but it's not like running where it's high impact and there you need to stop. So I tried to, you know, when I was a youngster, I would do gym in the morning, cardio in the afternoon, pretty much 3 days, 1 day off, 3 days, 1 day off. And now I'm like a little bit older, I've got kids, so I reduced to 1 session a day. Yeah. And then something fun. So sometimes I go to the gym and in the afternoon I want to go cycling just for fun, so I'll do it. I'm a huge kite surfing fan as well, so whenever there's good wind, I'm gonna just go kite surfing. So I do a lot of activities, but it's much less. I'm much less, square than I was at the beginning, because I guess I know my body better and I know where I need to work.
Yeah, and you find that you probably, well, you've been wearing the Aura ring now, but I mean, you probably notice when you start roping the fun into it more, it allows the recovery to be a little bit better too. When you're so regimented all the time, it adds a stress element to it that kills your recovery to a certain degree.
Yeah, exactly, and you kind of lose the fun of it, so you can, you start pushing less. It feels like it's really something you have to do, and it's not something you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. Like this year, the championship finished on the September 11 in Laguna Seca, and then the next time we're going to be in a car is going to be February 2023.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
3. No, 3.
Yeah,
oh dear, we're already 2023. So
exactly.
It's almost 5 months where we're not going to be driving the car, so it's going to be really hard to keep the neck muscle. It's very specific to driving the car going, so I don't like those long breaks, because when you drive, the body gets used to it, and then you can do more of the fun part. But then I would have to make a real strict program on how I want to do, what I need to do, which muscle I need to keep going, and it's fine tuning through what you do. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah. What about in terms of during that off season? I mean, what kind of things can you do? Do you maintain things for reaction time in the off season? Do you still practice that piece, or does that really become much more in the moment kind of thing, or sort of almost a warm up sort of thing, or do you practice that in the off season too?
No, I do it more like a warm up. More when you get to the racing part, because you don't. It's great to stay sharp, but you don't need to peak when it's the off season, right? So there's stuff that you try to put it aside. So when you get back at it, it's still fun. If you do 365 times the same thing a year, you lose the fun of it. So during the racing season, there's stuff that I want to do, that I need to do to perform well, and then on the off season, probably I'm going to do a little bit more fun. It's just going to be a little different activities, different challenges. Could be 100 miles or more on the bike. It can be riding in Colorado. It can be climbing some of the biggest climb in the US. Can be trying to bench press something that I've never bench pressed before. Just small challenges out of a racing, because as a competitor, you just always need something to drive you to the next one.
So I think you nailed it. It's for you, you're not obsessing over it in the off season. You're doing the right thing by allowing for that conditioning to occur in a natural way, and that's, I think, keeping you fresh and can keep you doing it for a long time. And it's interesting, even with cognitive performance, and when you look at the neurochemistry of it, they even say that reaction time is something that can't really even be built and accumulated. It's one of those things where you have to almost practice it in the moment for visual acuity and all these pieces. So it's, if you train yourself over and over and over with the reaction time, it doesn't necessarily have a long-term effect. It's one of those things where doing it in the short term gets those neural patterns going so that it works.
Yeah, I think like some people are just better at it than others. I've got a friend that, with those video games that you just press on your phone reaction time, he's better than me. Yeah. And he's never really practiced it, but he's just naturally really good at it.
Interesting.
So as you say, I think, I'm still good. If not, I wouldn't be doing that job, but I'm not outstanding at it, right? But yes, when you use it, it's more like to get the brain and the eyes and everything switch on. There's one thing I love doing before jumping in a car is jogging. Yeah. People are like, where do you jog? Are you a circus? And it's no, eye-hand coordination, making sure you look at things and try different tricks and so on. And it can be only like a minute, I know it just gets me on. Yeah.
Do you need to do any kind of a meditation or anything like that?
No, not really. I tried a bit of mindfulness. Yeah. It's just not my type of thing.
Totally. Yeah.
But for me, it's more being out on the bike, out kite surfing.
That is meditation.
I tried on to get my mobile phone and stuff like that. So I'm just there in the moment. Yeah. Right now, I think in the life we all live right now, between the phone and the social media, and it's always, we're very rarely in the moment. Even when you're with friends, then you take and you go on Instagram or Twitter, look at it, and it's like, hey, you know what? I'm with friends. I should just drop my phone, and it's almost like become an effort to, to put that aside and be present. So that's why I like those, or even at the gym, high session in the gym. You're just too tired to look at your phone. So it's actually, yes, you're working hard, but the mental side, which is where most of the fatigue comes from, is resting, and I think that's something that I need to be better at.
Yeah. Well, so, it sounds like you've got that part down. Because a lot of the younger generation, it's tough because they're always glued to the phone and they don't really have that separation there. And I think they might be young and fresh enough now where it's not going to affect them, but you know, you're burning out your dopamine stores a lot, right? I mean, you're constantly firing that. With regards to nutrition in terms of pre-race, do you do anything specific? I mean, you're big in nutrition. I know you pay attention to what you eat.
Yeah, I mean, I started cooking back in 2009 when I had to lose weight for Formula One, and it was eating chicken and green bean every day for a week, and I thought, I can't carry on like this. So then I got into cooking and learn about it. If I'm being honest, I'm a little bit less now careful than I was before, just because IndyCar allows us to have more weight. Once in Formula One for so many years in my career, I had to be the lightest possible that I could do with the strength, so that was very hard work. Right now I can put a little bit of muscle, I can just feel
definitely
better.
You're definitely put on muscle.
I did compared to, I'm probably like 10 kilos to 20 pounds heavier than I was in Formula One at the beginning, you know, just to get the car going. But yeah, I try to eat the right thing, you know, but also keep the pleasure going, because it's the same thing. I've been racing for 22 years. Imagine 22 years if you have to be all the time very strict, you just mentally gonna melt down, right? And I think in racing we rely on the car but also on our skill. Like if we take Formula One, if you don't have the right car, you're never gonna win. So you can do everything you want to be perfect. If you don't have the car, you're not gonna win. But also I think if mentally is where you need to be at the best place. It's not necessarily the guy that's gonna run 100 meters the fastest, not gonna get the guy that squats the heaviest that may win the race. But if you're in the right place mentally, that's going to get you further away. And I think in racing, we have got that. We've got a frustration that if you don't have the car, you cannot win. Like I guess at 100 meters running, it's you on 100 meters running, right? So you just need to run faster than the others. So it has to be, everything has to be, you know, perfect on that side. But for us, I feel like if we're mentally in the right spot, it's just better. Yeah,
no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, as time goes on, even with what I do, it's when you put yourself in this box all the time, it's great to a certain extent because you can get some motivation out of that, right? You can get excited about something, and it's like when someone starts a new diet, they get excited about it and they're motivated about it to a certain degree. But it's that sustainability and being able to, you know, find something, and then just finding those little, maybe those little tweaks, those little hacks that you implement, just, you know, here and there, that don't take this grandiose magnum opus to make happen.
No, it's you know, in life I think it's all about balance. And yes, you can go on a diet, and some of them works really well, but if you're being too strict, you're not going to last long term, right? If you just find your sweet spot and you know, you work around it, then I feel like you can go where you want to.
I think there's also a huge benefit to, you know, carrying more muscle in terms of if there's wrecks or anything, like when you have more stability and more support. I mean, it's pretty obvious you'd be safer, right? So I think that's a big piece too. And I, you know, think that obviously you pay attention to neck strength, you pay attention to that, but just in general, just internal organs, everything like that, it's a protective measure, and it's not always looked at like that. And I think racing in general, whether it's Indy, NASCAR, F1, whatever, people aren't, the spectators at least, aren't understanding the physical demand. They aren't understanding the risk, because it's all just two-dimensional, what they see on their phone, and they're not really there feeling it. And you know, again, like I respect you because you're someone that's really put emphasis on that, or at least it comes across that way. You're not pushing it.
Well, I know it saved my life in Bahrain 2020. You know, I had a 67G impact. And I stayed conscious. I was able to jump out of the car. And my wife always say, "Why do you do so much gym?" And you know, and you're always at the gym. And after the crash, she was like, "You can go as much as you want, man." You know, just because, as you say, internal organs are something that the deceleration is here. So you need to be able to protect it. You know, if things had gone wrong, I would have burned that day, and I did burn a little bit, but nothing compared to what it could have been.
Yeah, and I'm sure this is a question that's you've been asked a lot, but just for the sake of, you know, this channel, is what went through your head at that moment in Bahrain? Or were you just in shock? I mean, do you even remember much? Or?
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
So every single thing, and I remember trying to jump under the car and realizing I was blocked, and it was a night race, so you don't see much. So I thought I was upside down. I would wait that someone comes and, you know, rolls the car so I can jump out. But then there's that orange color in front of my visor, and I'm like, that's not normal. Realize it's fire, so I'm like, okay, I don't have the time to wait, and I try to jump out and jump out and jump out. I was stuck in that chassis, and then it goes to a point where you accept you're gonna die, right? It's quite a weird feeling. But I remember all my body, you know, kind of went relaxed and thought, you know, it's gonna die, so I'm gonna die now. So is it gonna be painful or not? What am I gonna burn first? Is it legs, hands, helmet? Where is it gonna go first? And then I remember thinking about my 3 kids and like they can't grow up without a dad. And that's where I find the strength to go really hard with putting to the halo and break the thing that was keeping me in the car. So there were a piece of that was on top of my head, and I managed to break it, and then that's how I could eventually escape the car. So again, thanks I was, you know, strong enough and conscious and wasn't hurt that I could find that way out. And I was well aware that my hands were burning, you know, I could feel it and so on. When you get burned, you know, you cook and you get burned, you would remove your hands from what's hot. Right, I'll tell you one thing, my hands stay in there and I wouldn't move it. I was just trying to jump out, and it's like, it became like completely second importance. The brain is just switching to another mode.
Wow, do you attribute a lot of, you know, how you feel about nutrition, how you feel about things now, in terms of just, you got to enjoy life? Did a lot of that come from that accident, just being able to say, hey, wait a minute, this is legit, almost died, I got to enjoy my life and have a croissant now and then? And, you know, I mean, did that play a part, or do you think that just came with maturity and age?
No, it changed my life, but I think beforehand I already kind of understood that if I was in the right place mentally, I would be performing better, even though my body fat may be 9.5 and not 8% or stuff like that. But I was like, you know what, if I'm feeling happier, if I'm a couple of 1 pound, 2 pounds heavier than what the team wants, it's not going to be a big deal, because I'm just going to feel better and I'm going to be performing better. That day, yes, changed my life and changed the way I race and just, you know, I do it for myself right now. And because there's a million reasons that I could have stopped racing after Bahrain, and I just say no, you know, I'm passionate about it. I still have that hunger for it. I still want to win races. So I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna just do it for myself and my fun.
Yeah, and I mean that shows with everything that you're doing, right? I mean, you're doing what you love. So, well, man, I don't want to take any more of your time, but I appreciate it so much, man.
Thank you very much.
One of the things people don't always realize is what goes into everything in the sport, as far as athleticism goes, as far as nutrition goes. So I'm here with Romain Galloy.
Yep.
Ryan, you work with all these guys, like you know, the crew, the drivers occasionally, everything. I mean, we're seeing a pretty big shift in terms of starting to focus on like the athleticism of the sport as a whole, right?
100%. I mean, we're trying to treat these guys like athletes, guys and girls. We have some females with the crews as well, and whether they're an over-the-wall crew member or if they're just a mechanic, truck drivers even, we're trying to treat them as athletes. We're trying to get them to understand what they're doing is physical, and it can beat your body up. You know, whether you're driving across country from Indianapolis to Long Beach, or if you're turning wrenches all day long, when you're doing that, plus you got to do pit stops. You know, there's injury prevention involved, there's strength and conditioning, and all those things to try to have the best performance on over a race weekend. So 100%.
So you work with you know, a lot of the crew in terms of their actual strength and conditioning as well. They're training like what they do when they're getting ready, and I think that's a piece that people don't look at. People focus on the driver athlete. They don't realize like, these guys are, when you're schlepping wheels around, you're moving fast, and I mean, what does the training look like, just in a nutshell?
Right, you know, in the off season, or really, you know, the preseason for us was January and February. Right. I mean, our first weekend, race weekend, was the last weekend of February. So we were going, you know, 5 days a week. We're working out, you know, an hour each morning. Then we go to the shop. So they work out at our facility with Ascension St. Vincent in Indianapolis. Put them through strength training involving, you know, basically the things we focus on in order priority are injury preventions, quality movement patterns, muscular endurance, and functional strength. You know, we're not just in there lifting weights till our eyes pop out of our heads and You know, everybody wants to be strong, but we want to be strong functionally as both a pit crew member and also as a mechanic. You know, so we were going 5 days a week, and then we go to the shop, and then we have pit stop practice for. You know, we have 4 teams. We'll be out there for about an hour total. We don't try to beat them up with doing it all day long.
Yeah.
But we try to get in and run, you know, 4, 5, sometimes 6 stops, depending on what we're working on, breaking down the movements. And this is all on a day where they're also then they got to go and get tires ready for maybe at that point of the year a test we're doing, or just working on building the car, getting it ready for the season. You know, in the off season, these guys are breaking down all the parts and making sure everything's looking good. And so it's a day where even if they're not on the pit crew, it's a physically demanding job, and they get bumps, bruises, injuries, chronic wear and tear type stuff that we're trying to focus on preventing in our strength training. So that's why the number one thing is injury prevention, and then ultimately functional strength.
I think people realize that when if you've got a crew chief goes down that knows everything that's going on because he hurts his back. I mean, how much that can slow you down when it comes down to competition. Good to see that, it's turning that way where everyone's viewed as an athlete, because I think the more that we get that mindset, if a mechanic or a pit crew member views themselves as an athlete, they're going to treat themselves differently, right? 100%. If they allow themselves to take a back seat, then it's not the same, right? So that's awesome to hear, Matt. Well, I appreciate everything, brother.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thanks, man.